Welcome back, guys, to Trichotillomania Bootcamp, your step-by-step guide to full remission and freedom from hair pulling. I am your trick coach, Dr. Harel, and this is episode number 4. And we are finally in a place where we are going to talk about the formula for remission. So today, my intent is to present you the formula to reach full remission of hair pulling behavior. So are you guys ready? So here we go. The formula for remission is remission equals awareness plus consequence. So remission equals awareness plus consequence. Let's talk about each component of this formula. The first one is remission. Let's talk about what remission is and why we're talking about specifically about remission. So remission in and of itself is the absence of the pulling behavior. So when you no longer pull your hair out, this is remission. Now, why we're not talking about recovery? Recovery sounds so much sexier. Recovery sounds so much more final. We really want to be done with hair pulling. We don't want just remission. We want to have full recovery. And this is an important point. Remission means absence of the behavior. If you remember, the problem of trichotillomania that I discussed in the previous episode had 3 parts to it. We had the biological predisposition, we had the stress or trauma that triggers that predisposition to create an onset of the hair pulling behavior, and we had a habit of hair pulling that was created, right? So these 3 components are the trichotillomania. Now, absence of behavior does not cancel our biological predisposition. So although we don't pull our hair anymore, the predisposition is still there. So we cannot speak on recovery right away. We can speak on remission. And the good news are that remission is our first step toward recovery, right? There's no way to reach recovery from trichotillomania without getting first into a sustainable long-term remission of the behavior. So we are on our way to recovery, but our first destination is remission. Another important piece is that if remission can be reached within just several weeks, recovery is a long-term process and a bit more complex and more personal and individual. So folks that suffer from hair pulling also often suffer from other things such as anxiety disorders, depression, or other things that are happening in their lives. So if remission can be neatly packaged and there can be a recipe, a formula provided for you to reach remission, to actually get into full recovery, that will require a deeper and more individualized approach. So this is another reason we're talking about remission and not recovery right away. Also, the reason it's so important to talk about remission, not recovery, is because if you mistaken lack of pulling behavior for recovery, you are just asking for a relapse, right? So it's important to understand that once you reach that place where you no longer pull your hair, it's great, it feels empowering, it feels awesome, but you're still not recovered. You're still not done. And if you think you are, it's just a matter of time for you to relapse back into the habit of hair pulling. So you're just one hair pull away from the relapse, right? So we want to talk about remission because this is a very doable, very short-term and specific goal. So let's start with that. So the formula of remission equals awareness plus consequence. We talked about remission. Now let's talk about the awareness. In awareness, there are a few kinds of awareness that we are going to be working on to create the conditions for remission. There are several types of awareness. There is the body awareness. We need to be aware of what our hands are doing, first of all. So when our hands are kind of drifting toward our hair, whatever the hair we want to pull, whatever it is, whenever our hand is going to pull our hair, we need to have an internal alert that tells us, hey, this is going to happen. You're about to have a pulling incident, and now you can intervene and do something to stop, right? So we need to have this awareness, because often it's so automatic we don't even notice how our hand starts pulling out our hair. So that is body awareness. Another aspect of body awareness is awareness of our physiology. So we need to know in what state our body is in the moment. Is the body tense? Do we have tension in our shoulders, tension in our core? How does our body feel? Because in different situations, different physiology, we might be more prone to pull our hair. Let's say, for me, I notice that when I'm more anxious or stressed, my shoulders kind of tense up, and from that place, I'm much more likely to pull my hair. So we need to be more aware of our physiology, because from that place we can breathe, we can move, we can shift our body, we can do something different to prevent that pulling incident. So that is first, body awareness. Then we have context awareness. So this is basically a pattern of pulling. Where are we more likely to pull? Are we mostly pulling when we're watching TV, when we're reading a book, when we're studying for the exam, when we're sitting next to the computer? What is this setting? When we're in the restroom, when and where are we pulling our hair, right? So context awareness is important. Another one is through time awareness. So the through time awareness talks about keeping the fact that we are working toward remission on the forefront of our mind. So every day when we wake up, to remind ourselves, hey, today is another day I'm working toward full remission. Or, hey, today I'm working to maintain my full remission from hair pulling. Right? This has to be an ongoing conversation within you. Right? So this has to be a through time awareness of the process. And finally, internal state awareness. That is talking about the awareness of our thoughts and emotions. So what am I thinking and what am I feeling? What is my mood today? What is my internal state today? And in which kind of situation, what kind of emotions are triggers for me? Usually it's stress, anxiety, or a bunch of other negative emotions and negative self-talk that create that kind of propensity to pull the hair. So these are kind of the awareness types that we are talking about: the body awareness, context awareness, through time awareness, and internal state awareness that we are going to be working on to create the conditions for remission. Now back to the formula. Remission equals awareness plus consequence. So let's talk about the consequence for a second. So consequence, the idea of consequence is based on behavioral therapy, right? I mentioned in the beginning that I'm not really inventing anything new in my method. I'm only using elements that already exist from methods that work for treatment of trichotillomania, and I use them in this kind of recipe in the right dosage, in the right sequence, to create a formula for remission. So this is the third component of the formula, the consequence. We are going to be using a principle that is called, in behaviorism, it's called the law of effect. So I'm going to read what it means. So any behavior that is followed by pleasant consequences is likely to be repeated, and any behavior followed by unpleasant consequences is likely to be stopped. That sounds very commonsensical, and it is. And because we're so familiar with behavioral techniques and positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and all of that, so punishment. So we're going to use the law of effect to reduce and finally fully suppress our hair pulling behavior. We're going to devise a very specific, unpleasant consequence for our pulling behavior, to reduce the frequency of the pulling behavior and eventually to fully suppress our pulling behavior. And full suppression of pulling behavior is actually remission. Now, again, you probably have noticed I'm talking about suppression of the behavior and not elimination of the behavior, because the propensity to engage in hair pulling will not be eliminated. It's still going to be there. And however, the maintenance program of in the remission will help you maintain the remission long term and move from remission into recovery. So we'll talk about it later. So the third element of the formula of remission equals awareness plus consequence, the consequence, we're going to spend a whole episode on devising a consequence that is right for you. So we'll talk much more about it. So in this episode, I just wanted to present the formula for reaching remission. And now that you have the formula, in the next episode, we're going to be talking about, more specifically, about each component. So next episode, we'll spend a whole time talking about how to achieve the awareness, to create the conditions for the remission. And the episode after that, we'll talk about consequence, how to devise the right consequence to achieve the remission. So in our next episode, we will complete the full picture for you to be able to start applying this formula at home and for you to be able to reach remission. Our goal, as always, is total freedom from hair pulling, right? This is kind of where we're going. So if you like this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button if you want to be notified of the next video, to be first to know when it's coming out. Share with people who might benefit from these videos, and comment. In your comments, this is kind of the way I can gauge if the videos are helpful, if there's something that you need to change. My goal is to work with you guys to create kind of a platform together to help as many people as we can. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye-bye.